I just finished this podcast outreach that might be interesting for people that want to appear on podcasts. It's a bit long. I'm going to refine the prompt, but I think it's pretty good in the end. So, what I did to get the list of podcasts, I use podcastdb.io and I downloaded a list of 1,000 business podcasts. It looks like this. So, we have data such as the title of the podcast, right? The ratings, which I didn't use in the prompt because it was a bit odd, the number, right? The email, of course, which we are using to send the actual AI email. The author of the podcast, James Taylor. The genre of the podcast, so management, podcast, business, arts, etc., etc. And of course, the description. That is epic, right? And let's see here the keywords. The keywords. Somewhere here, keywords. Yep. So I used all of that podcast data here to, well, I uploaded the list here, right? In Persona. And what I did, let's go through the full prompt. I'm also gonna modify it for my next outreach session, which is gonna be for myself. I tend to always double use the list. So let's see the full prompt because the result I wasn't that satisfied with, but it just shows you the potential. So podcast, Charles, I'm going to show you the result right now so that you understand when you're saying I'm not that satisfied. It's pretty long, right? And this here is the full prompt. I also sent it from Richard's podcast manager. And yeah, I'm reaching out because so that's my client's background. And then that's the podcast name with over 2 decades, Richard's Inside, blah, blah, blah. Challenges and triumphs of acquiring leads and sales, making him an ideal guest to discuss real world application of digital marketing, right? Perpetual traffic is the podcast. Traffic strategies. So yeah, my clients, that's all AI generated, which is wonderful, right? So indeed, my client has experience into that, real life success stories. So launching my pet go, so that can be interesting. Marketing innovation. And then it mentions how many, the audience of the podcast and how many pods it has produced before, just another sign that we are knowing about the podcast, and then call to action. So it's a bit long. And the next, I'd like to return like fit or no fit instead of outreaching to all of these people. Just like return no fit if it's not a fit, right? The full prompt that I used to obtain that was here. Create a personalized podcast guest outreach email using the following information. So with an exception, I didn't prompt it to write just a body snippet. I prompted it to write almost a full email, which is also an error, by the way. You want just write the body, it's more simple. Then I fed it the full data that we have here. I fed it the full bio of Richard, which might have confused it. And let's see here, the instructions. Begin the email, highlighting the strongest connection. So that's good. I don't think it did that really well, though. And Richard's experience, this should be your hook. Maybe I should try like if it's not a fit for the podcast, then return if Charles is not a fit, because it's gonna be me for the podcast, return no go. The first paragraph, expand on why Okay, three specific areas might be a bit too much. So let's delete that part. Charles Use the podcast keywords and description to guide this alignment. Another way to modify quicker the prompt rather than manually is just like prompting Claude back. I use Claude to create that prompt. A bulleted list of 3 to 4 talking points. So that is like usually all the same. Each point should start with a keyword for our team from the podcast description. Richard's experience relates to this team. Suggest da. Yeah, I think the last paragraph might be cool, but I might give it like more indication that yeah, you're like an experienced podcaster. Well, Richard's or Charles an experienced guest, right? Um, clear call to action. So it didn't follow the word count. Maybe because we ask it like 3 points. So that's how GPT reacts. It doesn't follow your word count when you ask it too many things, which is somewhat natural, right? Can't have everything. Professional and enthusiastic. Yeah, and the errors, that's pretty useless. Generate a persuasive outreach email. Start directly with the reason for reaching out. Avoid generic openings like I hope this message finds you well. Focus on creating da. Focus on creating compelling case da. Did not use asterisks. Yeah. So that was the prompt. I'm gonna modify it. Basically, I'm gonna copy the full thing to Claude, and I'm gonna tell it everything that I didn't like in the output, right? Which is this here. Just save it and run for the first stand. But yeah, the output is this, right? So I'm just gonna tell it the email's way too long. It's a bit too generic. Just be short, be to the point rather than the full email. And yeah, basically what you need to replace in that prompt is the guest's bio. Maybe I should have started with that, but why this is genius. The more podcasts I get like a yes from on my clients, like that, the more I have a huge database on my end, and I tend to charge per podcast interview that they do, right? So it's a nice business model for me and the client, and it's fully scalable. So if I get more responses, the better my AI is, the stronger, the tighter is that ecosystem, the more cash I can make. Maybe I should have also started with that, but getting on podcasts is genius. You just leverage, first you make a connection, right, with a podcast host. Generally, they're successful and smart people. Second, you leverage their audience. Third, they're picking your brain. They're giving you insights. Fourth, you can make YouTube shorts and TikTok shorts out of these. So it's pretty genius. It's a good time spent to go spend time on a podcast, right? So yeah, folks, that is for today. Hope you appreciated that one. As usual, let me know if you need the full prompt. If I can be helpful with the list, let me know. I'll